It'll. All right. Welcome to the Jennifer O'Brien Show. I'm your host, Jennifer O'Brien. With me today, we have a special guest. It's Michelle Wright. Michelle is a friend, and she's also got a very interesting job. And she works for WSB here in Atlanta, 95.5. You're an anchor and a reporter on the morning segments.
Yep.
But anyway, we've been friends for like a really long time.
Yes. Yeah.
So, anyway, we've talked, over the years, and I just thought it'd be fun to kind of get you on here today and have a conversation with you and just kind of get to know who's this Michelle Wright, the woman behind the voice that if you're in the Atlanta area, you get to hear in the morning sometimes when you're driving to work or whatever. I know the first time I heard you on the radio, I was like, oh, I know her. I know her. And it was pretty cool. It's something about it, even though, we have so many ways to communicate now, there's still something about hearing one of your friends on the radio in the mornings that you're like, that's pretty cool. So, I just kind of want to kind of hand it over to you to just kind of help us how did you get involved in being an anchor and a reporter? Just kind of tell us your journey.
Yeah.
And what
Well,
you
first
do.
of all, thank you so much for having me on. We'll always love to sit and chat with friends. And even though, Jennifer and I are only 27, we've known each other for
Right.
over a decade and all. We were like
Yeah.
in the womb when we met.
There you go.
With
That's
it.
right.
Yes, that's how we're gonna play it. But yeah, no, as far as kind of getting into my field, it started. I knew what I wanted to do in high school. I am one of
Hmm.
the very fortunate people who kind of knew what I wanted to do. And it started with my dad when I was a sophomore in high school. And he was like, you know what? Find something you love to do and do it. And
Hmm.
then if they pay you, it's like a bonus. And I
Oh,
was like,
nice.
well,
Yep.
I love to talk. I love to watch TV and I love to tell people what's going on. So I don't know how that's going to work out for me, but these are
Yeah.
the things that I love
Wow.
to do.
Hmm.
And then I discovered I could major in television at in college. And I'm like,
Hmm.
that's a major. Like I
Yeah.
still remember the ABC lineup from Tuesday nights when I was growing up type of thing. So
Yes.
I
Okay. Can you just give it to us real quick? Because you said it and now I need to hear it.
so it was Happy Days, Laverne and
Yes.
Shirley, Three's
Yes.
Company, and I'm totally dating myself. And then I had to go to bed. Like after
You
Three's
had to go
Company
to
was my
bed.
bedtime. Yeah. So sometimes it was soap, sometimes it was
Yes, I remember
something
so.
else
Oh
that
my
would come
gosh.
on, but I would
Yes.
hear the theme song as I, was sent to bed by my mom. So
Back when TV was, I just that's you're talking about these sitcoms and those theme songs. Like I have a
yeah,
whole CD of just old theme songs from sitcoms, and they're just so great, especially Three's Company. Um,
yes. And I
I mean,
still
what a
remember
duet there.
lyrics from that. I
Oh
remember
yes.
lyrics from, and these they were the jam. Some of these
Oh
theme
yeah.
songs, like Welcome Back Kotter was the jam.
Oh
Barney Miller, that was a
yes.
Tuesday night 9:30 after soap. But that bass line on the
Yeah.
Barney Miller
Yeah.
soundtrack.
Oh, I mean, they were like for reals bringing it to the table with
Yes.
those theme songs. And
Yes.
we do karaoke sometimes, and it's fun during
Yeah.
the karaoke to bust out some of those old theme songs. And it's amazing how it gets so locked in. Like we all
Right.
know, we all remember because that was we were all raised. I used to say Jack Tripper was my babysitter because I'd come home after school and I'd be watching Three's Company reruns. So
Right.
I got
And
Sam.
that was
Let's see. Jamie Lily says Sanford and Son
oh,
theme song. Oh
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, all you got to do is
Another
just go.
great bass line.
Yes,
Yes.
you're right.
Yeah, the
Let's
bass
see.
lines were great. Oh my goodness.
Friend,
How are
that's
you doing?
Jerry. That's
We
Big
can't
Daddy
forget
laughs
about
a lot. We will not forget
yes.
about you.
We could
Funny,
never
funny
forget
guy.
about you.
Welcome back, Carter. He says, yes, welcome back,
Yes,
Carter. That is a welcome back. Yeah.
exactly. Like you just sit there and it was that golden age of great theme songs.
Oh, definitely.
The show might not have been great, but the theme song
Right.
was
That's
epic.
true. That's
And you would
true.
remember that theme song. I still remember Dallas and that theme song. And every
Dun,
time you hear, you're like, oh yeah,
dun,
that's
dun,
I know
dun,
exactly what
dun.
that is.
Like, doesn't
Yes,
it do something for you? It's so weird, like, you say it and it brings back this happy nostalgic memory. Um,
totally,
yeah,
totally.
I
Love that. And
remember. Yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Oh,
I
Andy
got
Griffith. Yeah.
Andy Griffith. Yeah, we still watch a lot of Andy Griffith. My husband's obsessed with Andy, and it's good stuff. It's good stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting how it gets in there, and, it's a happy time. Although, I remember watching the Golden Girls in high school when I would be grounded on the
Mm,
weekend. So that was actually that brings back some depression for me, like, because 'cause I'm like, "Man, I'm home watching Golden Girls and Empty Nest with my mom because I can't go out."
right.
Actually, I don't think I was watching it because when I would get grounded, I couldn't even watch TV. So I was listening to my
To the
mom
theme
watch
song,
to the
hearing
theme
what
song.
you missed
You're right,
of what you're
that's
missing.
why. So anyway, I we detoured, but we're gonna get right back on track.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
you okay, had this
Right. So
love
love
for
television,
TV, uh-huh.
found out I could major in that. And so I went into school and majored in radio, TV, and film,
Mhm.
and absolutely loved it. Was my plan was I was going to do TV news. I always knew I wanted to do news. In my
Wow.
yearbook, my quote is I want to be Peter Jennings. Like I want to be an
Really?
anchor
Oh my
of a
gosh.
news program on a national network. That's exactly what I wanted to do. Um,
Wow.
and so wanted to do TV, and then I had a very wise internship supervisor who
Mhm.
suggested I try radio. Because, and I was like, but I like, he was like, you should try radio because really, when you look at it,
Mhm.
I want you to go home, and he goes, see how many older women on TV news you see.
Okay.
And there weren't
Wow.
a lot. There, especially, back then, like now, it's hard to even count. Like now you may get a Robin Roberts and a Gail King,
Mhm.
and maybe a Nora O'Donnell. Like those are three.
Right. That's
But
it.
those are three in how many that are out there? And
Okay.
they weren't even there, prior to this new millennium, to be
Mhm,
honest.
mhm.
Um, and so he was like, you won't ever lose your voice. You may lose your looks, but you won't ever lose your voice. So you'll always have a job in radio.
Sweetheart, let me just break it down for you. Those looks, enjoy 'em while they last. Yeah, well, it's a good piece of advice. I mean, here you are now still with a job in radio.
Exactly.
So
And that's where I'm super grateful. And then I tried radio and absolutely loved it because all I need is a cell phone and I
mhm,
can go live and tell you what is going on, set the
yeah,
scene. To me, it's a lot more challenging than television because I have a
mhm,
shorter amount of time to tell you a story, but
yeah,
yet be fully descriptive so you can picture it in your mind. And so
mhm,
there's a lot that goes into trying to weave that and be able to tell that and what that looks like. And so yeah, so I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy having to only look like I have makeup on or sound like I have makeup on. I don't have to actually put it on in the morning. And
yeah.
so it
Well,
works out really well.
I'm gonna tell you this, you have a face for TV, and that's true. Like, you're good, you're good looking, so, hey, you coulda went. I mean, you still look, you look great.
Thank
So,
you.
I'm just gonna say, but I don't know. I mean, r radio do okay, so I'll ask you this, do you ever regret, like, "Oh gosh, I wish I would've you went for some television broadcasting back in the day," or no, you
No,
were
I
like,
don't
"Radios," yeah.
ever. I do. I also appreciate, I mean, not so much now, but
Mhm.
back when I started, I appreciate the anonymity of radio
Oh.
because people didn't know what I looked like. And
Yeah.
so I could go out and I could go to the store and I could go, and people aren't, oh my gosh, you're that girl on TV. I remember
Yeah, that's true.
I was with a friend of mine who was on TV and we were like shopping in the mall. And
Uh-huh.
I had picked up like undergarments, and
Yeah.
there were these people who came up to, and they're like, "You're the one on TV," and I was like, "Oh, now you see what I'm like." I want none of that. I don't want to
Oh.
be recognized because I'm like, maybe I'm just trying to get, what if I gotta go and I gotta get some Metamucil? Like, I don't want
Yeah.
you all up in my grocery cart knowing what I'm
Yeah.
buying.
I never thought of that. So, wow, that's a great point. So it's like you're famous, but you're not. It's like we know who you are, but people aren't gonna be able to recognize you, like you said, when you gotta buy Metamucil and be like, "I'm having a moment, okay? I'm
Not
gonna
that
go
there's
home."
anything wrong with Metamucil. Not that there's
No,
anything wrong with it, but
no. In fact, it helps you out when you need it.
there
So,
you go.
maybe we could get them on as a sponsor for this show and make some money 'cause, gotta make that money.
Brought to you by
So,
Metamucil.
y that and that voice. Okay, so now I have to ask the question, have you ever been somewhere and someone's like, "Hey, your voice sounds familiar." Have you or recognize you by your voice?
I have,
Yeah.
and that's been very interesting. When I started out, I remember I was at a liquor store and I was, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is what I'm buying," and the cashier was like, "I know you from somewhere," and
Yeah,
and I was like, "Well, this is the first time I've been here. I'm
yeah.
not sure. You've been super nice, maybe," and then you have to show your ID. And they saw
Mhm,
my name and they were like,
mhm.
"That's where I know you from. Oh, you sounded very familiar."
Yeah.
Um, and then the same was I was talking to a friend of mine's mother,
Mhm.
and who I'd never met before, and she was like,
Yeah.
"I know I've met you," and I was like, "I I can't recall. Like, I apologize, I can't recall." And we went through
Right,
this whole
right.
thing until she put together that she used to listen to me on the radio
Mhm.
when I worked in Orlando, and she's from the Orlando area. And I had met her
Yeah.
up here in Atlanta, and she was like, "That's where I know you from." I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, okay, good. So I never did meet you. Like, I'm not losing my mind. I really did never
Yeah.
meet you."
Yeah. Yeah. So now you're probably a little more aware when you're like someone's like, "Oh, I know you're just," and then you probably have to ask the question, "Well, do you listen to the radio?" I mean, maybe. So tell me, like, so you decided to get in radio. Tell me what your careers look like because I know I met you when you got brought it when you came up here to move to Atlanta. So that's
That's
when we
correct.
connected. But tell us kind of your journey in radio.
Yeah, so I was in college, listened to my internship supervisor, did an internship at a
Mhm.
radio station in Poughkeepsie. I went to Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York, and got hired there my second semester or my
Mhm.
second semester senior year. So I was there for 3 years at the radio station there. Couldn't do another snow closing report because it was about to drive me literally insane because it was just cold weather, and I don't like cold
Okay.
weather.
Yeah,
So I ended up
yeah.
getting a job in Orlando, Florida, and I was there for 7 years at
Wow.
the Cox affiliate of stations there. So WDBO, K92, Star 94.5, WMMO, which was 98.9. And I still remember all their call letters because, I had to say them a lot.
Wow.
And then moved up here to work for CNN Radio when CNN had a radio division. And I
Mhm.
was at CNN for about 7 years before they shuttled their radio division.
Mhm.
And then did mornings on All News. There was an All News station,
Mhm.
All News 1067, and then they changed formats as radio does a lot.
Yeah, I've
Um,
noticed that.
and yeah, now I'm at WSB, which is 95.5 FM. But that is one of the things. Radio isn't necessarily the stablest of career choices.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
could see
there's a
that.
lot of format changes, a lot of, oh, it was this and now it's this. The good thing
Mhm.
about radio news is people, still they'll want the news unless they don't, until they don't. And then, then it's okay, I'm looking for another job again. But
Right. Yeah, I have noticed that, like, over the years, like, one day a station's a station, you go back and all of a sudden it goes from, like, a pop station to a country station or, like, constantly switching. So that's interesting that you said that. I would imagine there's like you said, there's a lotta
there's a lot of
turnarounds
turnout, and
or
sometimes it
shifting,
goes,
yeah.
I mean, crazy. Like, there was a station in a cluster that I had worked at, that went from like a music station to Spanish sports. And
Oh,
and
bueno,
it was
bueno,
like,
bueno. Yeah.
and I'm like, y'all didn't really notify people. Like somebody's tuning
Yeah.
in to, hear some Kenny G, and that's not what they're hearing. There's a big shock. And then usually because I always worked in the newsroom and the newsroom is always staffed, we end up getting those phone calls of people who are
Oh,
very mad that they can't hear whatever it was before that was on the station that's
oh.
affiliated with it. And I always have to tell people, like, because then they're yelling and screaming, and I'm like, ma'am, I answered the phone. So I'm glad you
Mhm.
think I have the power to change it back to what it was, but
Yeah,
I answered the phone. So you can
right.
kind of grasp that I have no power here. Like I'm not the one that made the decision.
Yeah, yeah. Now they'll just go tweet about it or something, I
Pretty
guess, figure
much.
out
Pretty
another way
much.
to
Yeah. Although we still do
kinda
get
express
calls.
that.
It's
Do
it's
you?
amazing. We still do
From
get
landlines?
calls. Yeah, out
"Hey,
from the
what is
landline.
late? Yeah, this is not what I went to bed with last night." Um, so, okay, I wanna, like, because you worked for so many stations and like you just said, you all those, like, WSB 95.5 or whatever, like, what out of all of them, like, is there one that just, like, kind of like when you're having a stressful moment and you can't settle your mind and that one just loops, you're like, "Oh, I wish that'd go out of my head." I don't know. Is there
It's so
one?
funny. Yeah, it depends on if I'm doing a story or where I am, but to this day, I will
Yeah.
still, on my copy, will write my name
Uh-huh.
and wherever I'm working, because if not, it'll default to, there'll be times where I'll be like,
Mhm.
Michelle Wright, 1390 WEOK. I'm like, I haven't worked for that station but it rolls off my tongue. Or when I
Yeah.
was in Orlando, it was News Talk AM 580 WDBO. And
Wow.
I mean, it just will pop back in, kind of like the theme
Wow.
songs. Like
Yeah.
if you ever saw the movie Inside Out, which I
I
thought
didn't
was a
watch it.
brilliant, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it's a brilliant Disney movie. But it
Mhm.
talks about how kind of your brain works.
Yeah.
And there's this little bit where the guys are like, there's this jingle from the guy's like childhood, and they're like, we're
Mhm.
gonna play that today. And that's what happens, I think, a lot of times with a lot of
Yes.
the call letters and things like that that will just, I mean, randomly pop in my head. And I mean, I think it was last month I was joking because I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, I forgot where I worked for a minute. Like I was doing
Yeah.
a live report and I was like, wait, where am I? Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Ye
I'm in Atlanta. I'm at WSB. Right. Okay.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, one of those moments. Yeah, I would that's interesting you said that. So, I would imagine that just gets in there. So, like, you have to have it, like, on a piece of paper when you're doing your thing to make
So
sure
I
you're
will write it down because
yeah.
again, and especially if I'm like overly tired, because I know
Mhm.
it'll just pop into my head. And
Yeah.
because I say these call letters, these taglines
Mhm.
multiple times a day,
Yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
And depending on how long I was working at any given station,
Mhm.
for years. So it just becomes like ingrained in my brain like a loop. And so you're like, right, nope, not there. Right, nope, not there.
Mhm.
Um, and I've had colleagues who I've never done this. Like I go by my given name on the air, but
Mhm.
they will change their name on the air, and I'm like, I could never do that. And when I've worked on different stations, there are times where
Yeah.
I've been given the advice like, oh well, if you're Michelle Wright on this station, you should be, Jenny
Uh,
Smith on this station. So then
uh-huh,
people, and I'm
uh-huh.
like, I can't because I wouldn't
No.
know who I was or where I was. And it would just
Yeah, I think that
ruin the
would
whole
because
thing.
I would think that'd confuse me because like, you're trying to just get because I've listened to you. You have to get it out, like you said, you have a short window. So you're like, "Duh, duh, duh," you're very like, "Duh, duh, 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 duh," and you gotta just get it as fast and quick so you
Right.
can get on to the next segment. So, like, try to, like, be throwing that in there. Oh,
Right.
I there's no way. I got
Yeah.
it.
And I
I don't
have
care who
colleagues
you
that
are.
do it and I applaud them because I'm like,
Really?
yeah, I would forget who I was. So
Yeah, that's crazy. That's so speaking like because I'm so fascinated, with what you do. How is that? I mean, I would we kind of touched on it a little we talked a little before we started, but because there's so much stuff going on with the news right now, and people are inundated. And how is that? Because this is your career, and you do this, as a living. How has that affected your job at all, or have you noticed any changes in how things are being presented, or what's going on with all that?
Yeah, it's been really interesting, especially over the last 2.5 years.
Mhm.
Um, just I feel people are just meaner, to be honest
Mhm.
with you.
Yeah.
We have gotten death threats. We have gotten, um, threats of
Wow.
violence. And to me, I'm like, we're not state-run media. Like, this is
Mhm.
not China. You can change the channel. You are allowed to do that. You
Yeah.
don't have to listen to me if you don't like what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
no what and it doesn't have to motivate you to be so full of animosity. Um,
Yeah.
which has really been hard
Mhm.
because we are human. We're dealing with
Right.
the same things as well. I've had coworkers who've lost family members to COVID. I
Mhm.
have coworkers who are dealing with the fact that my kid can't go to school because they've been exposed to COVID, so I can't come into work, so that means you have to work
Yeah.
extra.
Yeah.
We're dealing with all of that on
Yeah.
top of having to present the news.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of times people, because they don't like what we're saying, will say,
Right.
well, that's not the news, or you're choosing. And I'm like, I'm not choosing. I'm not part of some big conspiracy. I
Mhm.
don't know who the they is that, you're just saying what they want you to say,
Mhm.
because they are not paying me. I have not seen a check from the they. So
Yeah.
this is
Yeah, I
what
think
is news. And my job is
yeah.
to present that to you. You
Sure.
will decide. There is a bigger issue, which, local news, we don't get into it so much, which is good. More
Mhm.
on the national level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we've gotten away from media companies owning national talk radio, talk, television programming.
Mhm.
Um, and now there are business companies. And when you look
Yeah.
at it, their job is the bottom line. So it's a lot cheaper to
Mhm.
hire hosts and people to give their opinions than it is to staff a newsroom to
Mhm.
have reporters who can go for 40 hours a week or
Mhm.
more and
Mhm.
investigate and really dig to find the facts. It's a lot
Yeah.
easier to pay somebody for 2 hours a week to come on and say, well, I think that's stupid or I don't agree with it, slap the
Right.
word news on it and call it a news program.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's where we have, as a nation, gone with our
Mhm.
national news. Local news is still more like, you've got the reporters, you've got the anchors, you've got the people in the community. They're in your community, so they're not
Right.
going to misrepresent what's happening in your community because it's their community as well. They're
Yeah.
not misrepresenting it.
Yeah.
Somebody on a
Yeah.
national level, they may be in a completely different state, and
Mhm.
so they don't, but
Mhm.
they're commenting on what's going on, and they don't really know.
Yeah. Yeah, I it's a interesting time, because it's like you said, it's like you're doing a job that you've been doing for this is your career. So I definitely think we're in a society now because of information and because of social media. It's like people become addicted to being outraged and strong emotions and strong opinions. And there is nothing, I think, wrong with that. I mean, this is, we're just trying to figure out, why we're
Right.
here, how to navigate the waters. But to the point where it's like, I think there's a lot of, like you said, there it sounds like there's could be a lot of animosity towards those that are just doing their jobs.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think I and I won't speak for what you do because I know what you do, but and for what I do see when you do see other things out there, like of course, we know CNN and Fox, you pit those two against each
Mhm.
other. They had trying to report the same story, complete different narratives, um, which is where people, I think, the pot gets so stirred and all that. But now more than ever, I think people just kind of go out there and are looking to kind of find answers. But in that, there's always a danger that, I'm not gonna lie, I've probably become like a full-time conspiracy theorist since, the pandemic.
Right.
I'm being honest, I dig deep, I do deep dives. And I don't know. A lot of the stuff I used to think was conspiracy. Now it's like, oh, that's true now. Okay, well, I thought it was. I was
Right.
feeling it was, but I do notice more news now. It does seem like a lot of them give their opinions instead of just report what's happening. Just tell
Right.
us what's going on. And then if we want to tune into an opinion piece or listen, then like you said, there's so much of that. Like there's like
Mhm.
people just and their stance and how they look at it. So it can it's a little almost sensory overload. There's so much information. It's like, ooh, where do you begin?
Totally. And this is like a little inside baseball,
Yeah.
but it is super helpful for people to know. And what I find is that people don't know it. But um on these, your MSNBC, your CNN, your Fox News,
Mhm.
your
Yeah.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
there will be a host and they will
Mhm.
have guests. All None of those people are journalists.
Mhm.
Th- They are there to host and give their opinion, or they're there to give their opinion. A reporter, you'll find, they'll come in from the White House. I usually will beam them in from somewhere,
Yeah.
and they never give their opinion. They present the story, and then what happens is
Interesting.
they cut back to the studio, and
Yeah.
then that's where people will give their opinion. All of it is lumped in as a news segment. But really, the
Yeah.
only news is the reporter who never
Wow.
gives their opinion, just as here's the story. Like, I was at the
Mhm.
White House. This is what happened.
Mhm.
This is what they talked about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that person goes away from the screen.
Yeah.
And what happens as a viewer is then the viewer says, oh, well, all of it is skewed because
Yeah.
after the reporter leaves, you have people who are now just giving their opinion. They're
Yeah.
commenting on it. They're
Mhm.
commentators.
Mhm.
Um, but the way it's packaged is that it's news and it's designed. There's a saying in the Bible that people will want to hear what their itching ears want to
Yes.
hear,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it's designed for that because those itching ears are attached to wallets
Mhm.
that help make money for said network, because the network can then pay the advertisers because, oh,
Mhm.
we're going to tell this group of people what they want to hear and they're going to
Yeah.
tune in. So this
Yeah.
advertiser who wants to advertise to this group of people.
Mhm.
And so in all of that, the news gets lost
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
becomes all about the business and all
Mhm.
about the money. And that's what you're not going to hear about, because
Right.
they're going to say, but if you look, none of these people's title is journalist. They may have been a journalist in the past, but they are now a host. They are now a commentator.
That's an
They are not
interesting way
a
to put
reporter
it.
or a
Yeah.
journalist.
Yeah. So that's good. That clarifies some things, especially for someone like me. Like I was never drawn, please. I used to be like, honey, tell my husband, just tell me if anything big's going on in the world. And that's how I lived for probably up until the last couple of years. I was like,
Right.
and I don't know, sometimes I'm like, should I just go back to that? Let me just go
Right.
back to that happy,
Because
blissful,
that was
peaceful
good.
place. No,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
good. It's good. And now, a pendulum swings every now and then. Something big things are happening and I'm really paying attention. And sometimes I'm like, okay, well, I prayed and I'm not a politician. I don't have this or that. So I'm just, I just kind of back off things. But now more than ever, there's a lot of different things. I think, man, it's sometimes it's hard not like I'm like full on paying attention to this trucker convoy thing. Like that's been my new
Right.
kind of it's been very interesting. So I've been just looking at things. Um And yeah, I agree. There's so much stuff out there and I'm very cautious. Like I don't want to have that negative skew. And
Right.
sometimes when I see people giving their opinions and it's done with like just this, I'm just like, that
Right.
doesn't help me. That's not
Right.
helping me. Let's not do that because in my belief system, I got to be praying for those enemies. Like
Right.
if we have true enemies, yes, let's talk about it. But at the end of the day, you got to pray for them. You have to
Right.
be like praying that God will help those people, and whatever. So, but yeah, it's been very interesting.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think there's a place for everybody's opinions. I'm not
Mhm.
saying, oh, we can't have contrary opinions or anything like that.
Yeah.
But for me as a news person, there was a place where it was an opinion piece. You knew this was this
Yeah.
person's opinion
Yes.
on this topic.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
now you don't know. And
Yeah.
that's where
No
my
opinion.
issue is
Mhm.
I'm all for having your opinion because
Yeah.
I'm all for that. But don't say it's news.
Yeah,
That
I
your
like that.
opinion is not news.
Yeah. I mean, because a lot of people are just trying to figure out, hey, what is going on? Do you
Right.
feel like that? And this is another thing I've heard because listen, I'm the person that's actually waking up to stuff like,
Right.
oh, what's that up? I didn't know. Um, I hear people say people can't have the debate anymore. Or there's one narrative everyone wants to just they push one narrative. The news is just with that one narrative. And it's like, oh, yeah, I guess I could see that. So I try to have you heard that and what are your thoughts about that? Do you feel that way or do you feel like that's just more
I
opinion?
Yeah, again, I think it depends on where you're consuming your news.
Mhm.
Um, because a lot of times, again, it's more advertiser driven.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
who are the advertisers that you're
Mhm,
listening to? And are you by well, then, yeah, they're going to skew this way or they're going to skew that way.
mhm.
Um, there is not like I don't get given a narrative to speak about when I walk into work. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
I don't here's your
Yeah,
story and here's the way you present it. That's
yeah,
not how it works.
yeah.
Um so there but depending on and again you'll notice the difference between reporters and hosts.
Mhm,
Reporters are just going to give you, when like for example the trucker convoy in Canada,
mhm.
what you'll see is somebody is going to be on the ground in Canada and they're going to say, look, they're blocking this. This is what this person says. This is what this person says.
Yeah,
That's the news. That's the story. They're protesting because of this. They're saying this.
yeah,
Here are both sides.
yeah,
I come from the school of thought where that's where it ends. It's very much the like old school Walter Cronkite of,
yeah,
hey, here is the story.
yeah.
My job is just to present you the facts.
Yes.
Now, you do what you want with those facts,
Right.
but don't say that because I gave you both sides of the facts, I didn't give you enough of one or not enough this and the other. And then there's this
Mhm.
narrative, and I'm trying to mold the way you think. That
Yeah,
is no, that's not what the news is doing. That's definitely not what reporters are doing. There
right.
are advertisers. They're not trying to mold the way you think. They're trying to get money from your wallet. So if you tend to
Wow.
lean this way,
Mhm.
then they're going to tell you what you want to hear because you're going to keep listening and then you're going to keep buying their products that they're
Yeah.
advertising in that show.
Yes. Wow.
So,
You just broke it all down in a nutshell right there.
yeah.
So, like, yeah, I mean, don't you so, yeah, I mean, any advice out there for people, let's just say like me that are kinda like, "Hmm, I'm waking up, I'm looking, I'm interested now, I see something. Oh, that's not good. Oh, that's not good." I mean, so someone's out there just trying to figure out like, well, who is right and who does, so do you have any input for somebody that's kind of navigating these waters or hey, this is kind of oh
Sorry,
my
my
goodness,
cat
the
loves
fur
to
baby.
join in. Yes, this is
That is a
Remington.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, that best part of the show so far, we just saw the fur baby. Okay,
Yes.
I'm a little obsessed because I got a cat now, and now I get it.
Oh,
I
yes.
get it. I
Yes.
get it.
Totally.
But, oh, hold on, let's see, we have a comment here, this is by June Colson, she says, "Yes, that's how I was taught back in the day, my opinion didn't matter, just give the facts."
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's
So,
a
like
very much here are the facts. you
Yeah.
decide. And
Yeah.
that's where I still land. And every one
Mhm.
of my colleagues that's a reporter, that's where
Yeah.
we land. Is our
Yeah.
job are here's the facts. Like
Yeah.
this is what was said.
Mhm.
Now, I may find that alarming and I will tell you what wow, that's alarming because
Yeah.
this person said that.
Right.
It's
Right.
alarming because the person said it. It's not alarming because I think it's alarming or wow, something we can all agree on that's a fact. For example,
Mhm.
in Atlanta, there's a lot of gun violence. People
Mhm.
have not weathered this pandemic well at all.
Right.
Like,
Sure.
that's a fact.
Mhm.
We can't. eh, Now, you can say, well, I weathered it well. Well,
Mhm.
that's great, but not everybody weathered it well. And so
Right.
part of that is showing up in schools. It's showing up in violence. It's showing up, in homeless shelters. There are ways that it's showing up
Mm,
that are
mhm.
facts.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's the fact of it. Now
Yes.
I can start if I were a host or if I were a commentator, I can start telling you then why I think these
Mhm.
are the cases or the reasons. But the fact is this. And so
Yes.
my my advice would
Mhm.
be look at the reporter and
Mhm.
make your decision from the reporter who
Yeah.
is giving you the facts, which is if you're watching television and you're going to have a 7-minute segment,
Yeah.
that reporter piece is probably going to be 90 seconds
Mhm.
of that 7-minute segment. But
Mhm.
that's the 90 minutes or 90 seconds that you want to focus on because that's the 90 seconds
Mhm.
that is factual.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you can, anything that comes out of it is going to be somebody else's
Mhm.
opinion and present
Mhm.
it that way and will probably lean you towards one way or the other.
Yeah.
But it's going to be here are the facts. The facts
Right.
are people are shooting people up in Atlanta.
Yeah.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I tell my husband all the time, I was like, if you really part of this pandemic, right? Where we've like you said, this has been a challenging time, especially like from your standpoint, having to go through the trials of it, but then go and you're still reporting, you're still having to do your job and you're getting, a lot of kickback from it. And
Mhm.
um I tell Matt, my husband, I'm like, people just need to get back into community because I sit down all the time. I have friends on all sides of all of it. And I promise you, we get together and we don't talk about anything that I really see on the news for the most part. We're just talking about our families or what we want to do or and maybe we touch on some heated moments and topics and some of us see the same way, some of us see it different, but we're having a face-to-face conversation. Some of us agree, some of us don't, but then we learn to tread lightly on areas we're not on the same page with. But we're still, I think most people just want to be heard and loved and seen and in community. And I just think one thing I've noticed is social media it's in some ways it's great, right?
Right.
It really can bring people together. It's not a terrible thing. Right now, what we're doing, this is going out. We're having some people join
Right.
us. It's great. In other ways, you can see how it's really dividing. Um, so I don't know. In your job, have you? We can move on to something else, but I'm just so fascinated by what you do. Have you noticed social media having any sort of, impact on your job as a reporter and what you see on Twitter and just all this stuff? I mean, how does that affect what you do as a
Oh,
reporter?
greatly, greatly.
Mhm.
And it's
Yeah.
it's really changed the game. It's very interesting because when I started, and again, slightly dating myself, um, there was no such thing as social media. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And now that's how we get our press releases. That's how
Mhm.
the police departments communicate, the fire departments, many of the schools. Like, that's the
Mhm.
first thing we do. Oh, there's something that's going on. Check Twitter,
Yeah.
check Facebook. You're
Yeah.
checking their social media um, because that is how people now
Mhm.
get information out.
Yeah.
As far as go for news, as a news reporter, when I need to, okay, oh, Atlanta police are looking for a suspect. Oh,
Mhm.
okay. here's their release, here's a photo of the suspect, this is coming from their official social media account, which was never done before. Like, that was
Yeah.
not how we got news before. We used to do
Right.
what we called beat calls, where I would call, like, "Hey, Atlanta PD, it's Michelle. Anything going on? All right, I'll call you in an hour." And we would have standards going on in the background. And
Mhm.
that was how we generate. That's just not how it's done anymore. You know,
Mm-mm.
you just look to social media. As far as then what happens on social media, and people have seen this, because you're not face to face, people become exceptionally vitriolic, and they
Yes.
can be even more vitriolic than they would be in person.
I
And
agree.
there have been just horrible things
Yeah.
said about colleagues of mine, said about people I don't even know. And I'm like,
Mhm.
that is horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it can lead to a separation, more separation than bringing together.
Yeah.
Um, which is unfortunate, because social media is designed to bring
Mhm.
people together. And, I was president of my high school class, and so I use Facebook to plan reunions, which is
Mhm.
awesome, because
Yeah.
I can reach everybody who was in my class.
Right.
One, like, okay, boom, we're going to do this. This is what we're going to do. This is when we're going to do it. Great.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, then somebody can tweet an unflattering picture of me, or take something I said out of context, put
Mhm.
it out there, and now the whole world has one view of me that is not necessarily correct.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it's a double-edged sword, and it's
Ooh, yeah.
really unfortunate, because there are benefits to it, but then there
Right.
are drawbacks.
Yeah.
And and so I can't, personally, I see both. Personally,
Mhm.
they both affect me.
Yeah.
There are times where I've been in our newsroom where, I mean, colleagues of mine have been on the brink of tears because of
Mm.
what somebody wrote about them on social
Yeah.
media, or tweeted at them, or called them something, or have
Right.
been, like, infuriated by it.
Yes.
And they would never say that if they were face to face, or even on a phone call. They'd
Sure.
never say that.
Sure.
And so that's where, again, I think social media has, you can lose a lot of the humanity of
Mhm.
people through social media.
Yeah. I feel like cowards get really bold on social
Uh-huh.
media. And I say cowards because would you really say that to someone's face? And if you would, I mean, gosh, I mean, no, we're not
Right.
asking for that, but it almost seems like people hide behind their computer screens, and it just feeds this toxicity. And that's why sometimes I'm like, if I start to see a voice that gets really this side is this, and I'm like, that's not the problem. The problem, it's bigger than the other side. So stop trying to always pit that. And I get like there's truth is truth,
Right.
but I don't when it's so fueled by something that I feel like is toxic. It's hard for me to hear, even if something that's being said is true. I tend to kind of be like, all right, enough's enough because this it's just it.
Right.
What does it do for me anyway? When you yeah, just that kind of negativity, whether that I'd rather hear the truth, but hear it spoken in love than hear someone
Exactly.
say it with just fierce anger. So
Right.
June Colson says social media seems to fuel confrontation and not conversation. So, yeah, I
Yeah.
used to
And there are
yeah.
ways that it can do it. Because, again, I do believe it's also not just what you say, but how you say it.
Mhm. Yeah.
That is one of the things that I keep in the forefront of my mind.
Mhm.
And something I pray daily is, give me words, not just how to say, but not just what to say, but how to say it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, many people, I'll walk that back and say many people, as they're teaching
Mhm.
their children, will say, okay, let's find a constructive way that you can use your words, so that I can find it, like, we can know what you're feeling.
Yeah.
I think we've
Yeah.
lost that as adults.
Yeah.
somewhere we lost the, okay, how can I constructively use my words so
Right.
I can communicate and someone
Mhm.
can hear what I'm saying
Yeah.
and not just, all right, we're going to fight. And
Right.
even for the people back in the day who would have said that to people's face, there was a small percentage of people who may say the things they say on social media to somebody's face. It's a
Mhm.
small percentage, though.
You're right,
It's
you're
not
right.
the percentage of the people who are saying it now. And chances
Right.
are you would have said it to somebody's face and then y'all would have gotten into a fight.
Yeah, we'll fight. Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
There's no, how you gonna find me to fight me to do that? And are you really gonna do all that? No, nobody's gonna do all
3 o'clock behind the school. Let's
that.
go.
Exactly. Ding ding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, there's so much, yeah, I don't quite know. It's overwhelming for me as an adult. I can't imagine our kids growing up, and
Yeah.
God forbid, don't get me started on the TikToks. I love, and plus, trust me, I love being on TikTok, but some of
Right.
this, they're just inundated with so much information, and some people are just, it could just, it's wow,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like I really give it to parents and have empathy for kids now because this is a completely different world. It is
Yeah.
a completely different world than the world I grew up in. Completely different. Like if you had a bully, the bully was at school. When you got
Yes.
to your home, the bullying stopped by that bully
Yeah.
because you were able to close your door.
Hmm.
It didn't follow you everywhere.
Gosh, I know.
And now
I
it
know.
follows these kids everywhere.
Yeah.
Somebody would call my house, but they would call my house and it was
Yes.
a house phone and
Yeah.
my parent would answer.
Yeah.
So then they would know who was calling. Chances are if they were going to call to bully me, they hung up. But if they did have the nerve to say, "Is Michelle there?"
Mhm.
My mother or father would say, "Who is this?" They
Right.
would then have to give a name. Then they would know, "Oh, that
Yeah.
person who is bullying my child."
Yeah. Yeah.
Parents have no clue now because it follows their kids everywhere.
It's true. And listen, I mean, I've even had different people comment on certain videos. I'm like, "Oh, that hurts. It
Right.
hurts my feelings." And I don't know. I'm like, is it a troll or who is this? I'm like, middle-aged man just angry in his parents'
Yeah, just
basement,
mad. They gonna
taking a
look.
break
He's
from
gonna
Halo.
comment on this too, so don't worry about it. He gonna have something to say about this video too.
Yeah, so it's sometimes I'm just like, "You know what? Let it." And I've learned I don't respond. I'm like, last thing I do is try to defend myself or respond. I'm like, "I ain't getting in that mud with that pig. You wanna act like that, that's on you." But
I don't know
it's
you like
not
that,
like,
but which is hard for us as adults.
yeah, and
Like,
I'm a middle-aged woman
right,
struggling.
right.
Yeah.
I'm a grown woman. I still want to come find you, but.
It's so, and all that, like, what with so many people, like, who are so like, "Oh, fake news, I'm done, I'm this, I'm that." Like, how is that, where do you see this going? I mean, do you think that eventually we're gonna hit this wall and people are just gonna get off the screens and say, "Let's just go back"? Where do we go from here? I mean, I don't know, or is this our new normal where Twitter literally is the news? And I it you're right. Like, I read articles and their news is Twitter tweets, and I'm like,
Mhm.
Who's Joe Schmo tweet? I don't know who this guy is." So now his tweet has
Right,
become the news.
right,
What has happened?
right. I hope it's not the new normal. I really do. The optimist in me
Mhm,
hopes it's not the new normal.
mm,
The pessimist in me says, "Yep, buckle up because this is where we at," and it's just going to go downhill from there. Um, I hope we can get back to a place where people value truth
yeah,
and what truth is.
mhm,
That's an age old question. It's a question that was asked 2000 years ago. Like what
yeah,
is truth? We're still asking it today. So in
yeah,
that aspect, I think still we will still wrestle with what is truth, but I don't think the question is what is truth. It's what do I want to believe? And do
Right.
I want to believe what is true? Or do I want to believe what I want to believe?
Yeah.
Um, Twitter makes things easy, social media makes things easy. And I think we've become a society that likes ease. And
Yeah.
I'm right there for it. I enjoy being comfortable. I
Yeah.
enjoy being able to call up something, order what I want, and in 30 minutes it's at my door.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
enjoy so I am in no way, shape, or form casting any kind of shade or dispersion. But I think
Yes.
in that we've released and gotten rid of the okay, well, let me actually find out,
Mhm.
understand that this is opinion, but
Mhm.
where is this opinion based out of?
Right.
And I
Like,
think that's it. Like, I
yes.
find it's fine to have an opinion, but find where that person is basing that opinion from, and then
Mhm.
work to form your own opinion.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
people have worked to form their own opinion, while I may disagree with that opinion, I
Mhm.
respect that they have worked and formed their own opinion. And it's
Yeah.
okay if I disagree with it. It's okay if they disagree with me, but I what I would love is to bring back respect.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel like respect is
Yeah.
we've lost respect.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. It just seems so pitted and so angry, and I just feel like, um, it's hard to wanna engage with it when when it's so hostile and the person reporting on it. I want someone passionately telling me what's going on. That's okay. I'm a passionate person. I know how
Right.
it feels to get, "Ugh," and like I said, I mean, I've been doing a lot of times I will personally hear stuff and then follow the links and then kind of try to see if I can find if this is a true source, where's the source? I You have to use discernment because there's so
Right.
much out there that it's like, my gosh, like, and then sometimes I'm like, well, even if it's all true, even if all the stuff that I hear is really true, it's like there's only so much I can do about it at this moment. So I have to kind of talk myself down a little bit sometimes, but yeah, hold on. We got another comment coming in. Hi, ladies. Respect is key. That's Mia says that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or Maya. I
Maya,
think it's
yeah.
Maya. Sorry, I said Mia. Yeah. So I think I hope we get back there. I hope some things get restored. I know this pandemic hasn't helped. It
Right.
just seems like I know people fear, there's a lot of fear in people. There's a lot of distrust. There's a lot of people that have lost heart, different things that have happened politically um in
Yeah,
our
it's been a
system.
rough 2.5 years. Like,
Oh,
as
I'd imagine.
somebody who hasn't been able to take a break, um, from it, because there are a lot of people who do have that ability. They can shut off
Mhm,
the news. They can,
mhm.
and not, but being in it, and it's hard. By no means. You're quarantined. You're separated from people. In
Yeah,
there's, I mean, we haven't even touched on the social injustice issues that are going
yeah,
on, and
yeah,
all of the, I mean, there's so much that has kind of solidified in these past 2.5 years, so to speak, going on three, that it's like, oh my gosh. And I
mhm.
do think people have forgotten how to interact with one another
Yeah,
because they've been so removed. And so how do I act when I have a conflict with somebody?
yeah,
Wait, well, that person doesn't agree with me, and so that means that they're X. Well, no, it just
yeah,
means that person doesn't agree with you. Like, I like blue cars. That doesn't mean that I hate white cars. It just means
mhm.
I like blue cars.
Right.
Hey, but because we've been so separated, I think we've lost how to resolve conflict, which is unfortunately why we're seeing such an uptick in violence now that we're able to get back out into society.
Yeah.
We've just forgot, like, this is how I'm going to resolve it is I'm going to pull out my gun. No, no, like, have a
Shoot
conversation
'em, baby.
first.
Yeah,
Right?
mhm.
Like, this is not the Wild West, people. Settle it. And
Yeah.
even then, they at least scheduled the duel. Like, both of them had a time to meet. They were prepared, but
Yeah. Yeah, it's been I hope that things will start to, there's always hope. I gotta hold on to hope. But I hope things do start to turn around. I mean, there's so much distrust in the media and all that now. And kind of like what you said, people kind of pick a team and stick with that team. And it's an interesting time. And one thing I have noticed, it's not even just here in the States. This is a global issue. And once again, that's what's happening when I pay attention. I'm like, oh, all the stuff we're feeling here, people feeling it all over the world, and you're just like, God, I don't know. It's been a very interesting time. I will tell you that,
Yes.
and I applaud you for being one to stick it out, and you even touched on something. I wanna talk all day with you, but, like, even the social injustices stuff, it's like
Yeah.
being a Black woman, and you had to stick through all that and report on that and feel all
Yeah.
that, and I know that last year was really was that I can't it
Yeah.
all blends now, right? But I
Right.
know that that was a very challenging time for my Black
Extremely
friends,
challenging. Yeah.
and I can't imagine what that was like having to show up every day and just you're feeling it, you're feeling for them, you're feeling for your own self, so
Right.
if you could just because that was and it's not that it's ever gone away, but tell me how that was for you
Oh,
reporting
it's
in such
very
a time.
difficult. It's
Yeah.
extremely difficult because again, you're seeing, I'm like, this is me. This could be me.
Mhm.
And now I'm having to report on this. And
Mhm.
and it gets to the point where again, some people will have the luxury of turning off. I don't have
Right,
that luxury.
right.
And so it is, wait, we're doing there's another Black person shot by law enforcement. There's
Mhm.
another, okay, and then it starts to blend, and you're like, wait, so this one was and it's crazy
Yeah.
because I'm just because I'm on the radio doesn't mean that it's not going to happen to me.
Mhm.
And what is challenging is that people don't always get that on
Mhm.
top of having to report on it, I'm actually dealing with it.
Right,
And
right.
that is, that's an added layer where
Mhm.
yes, having to report, like, that's just rough because you're like, "Oh my goodness, this is so crazy. This is another, oh my goodness, it keeps coming, it keeps
Yeah.
coming." But in that, there's also, for me, the extra layer of, "Oh, I gotta deal with this." And so when I leave this radio station or when I leave wherever,
Mhm.
I still have to, because I could become the next story. So I've got to 10 and 2 and make sure, but not even that, because there are people who are
Mhm.
laying in their homes asleep,
Yeah. Yeah.
who there's a no knock warrant and they come in and they're shot,
Yeah.
or they come in and they're standing naked, in front of police for 45 minutes
Mhm.
because, and then hearing people brush it off like, well, it's no
Mhm.
big deal.
Mhm.
And I'm like, well, because you're not going through it. So you don't
Yeah.
think it's a big deal, but this is really it's really affecting people. It's
Right.
really
And
affecting me.
yeah, I saw a lot of, friends just share their own stories, their own Black
Oh yeah.
friends, just their own experiences, and you started to break my heart a little bit. I'm like, we don't really get it because we haven't
Right.
lived it. Like, I can, but I would I just felt, kinda like I didn't see it. I didn't know
Right.
that that happened to you. And then you start to feel like you hear story after story after story. I'm like, "Gosh, I had no idea." Like, I'm over here thinking I live in because I do. I kinda live in a bubble. You and I have been part of the same church family, which
Right.
is extremely diverse church, so I think everybody is like us, and I didn't know, even though we're sisters in Christ, that you have a different experience when you go different places
Yeah.
so it
And
really
sometimes
kinda
even in the church, which
yeah,
a lot of people don't want to tread on as well.
yeah,
And it's a different experience. And a lot of time, that again, I could get into some things
yeah,
which are just really hard, and people would be outraged. And when
Yeah.
I tell them there is the, "No, well, that wouldn't have happened." Well, then this person certainly they meant, and I'm like, "I don't know, but that's what was done, said,
Yeah.
happened."
Yeah.
So you can certainly they meant, as hindsight is 2020,
Mhm.
but going through it
Yeah.
and then having to go through it.
Right.
There's the woman, there is my gender, my race, my
Yeah.
ethnicity, all of that
Yes. Yes.
keeps piling on. Because I was telling a story about to one of my coworkers about what happened early on in my career. And they were like, and it was, a guy, and he goes, "I can't even believe that somebody said that to you. I can't even believe that happened to you." And I'm like, "Oh,
Mhm.
that was par for the course." Like, you know what I mean? Like, no one thought
Wait,
that
what
was a
did he
big
say?
deal.
Did you
He goes,
say it?
so
You went out.
yeah, so oh no. So well, there was multiple times, but this one time we were talking about I was a reporter, and one of my colleagues, like
Mhm.
again, fellow reporter, we both are working mornings, and he says, "Well, if this reporting thing doesn't work out for you, you could be a waitress at Hooters. You would make a ton of money." And I'm
Ah,
like, "Thanks." Like, where what
what? On so many levels, like, right now? Like
right. But this is
Yeah.
what,
Wow.
as a female
Interesting.
in a traditionally male job, like, okay, yeah. Like, now you couldn't do that. Like, now it would be Me Too, it would be HR,
Yeah.
it would, but even in that, like, I was like, "Hey," and everybody's like, "Well, no, he meant it as a compliment. He just meant that he thought you were attractive. He just," and it's the excuse.
Yeah, I don't think so, but
And it's
yeah.
like he's saying that I don't know what he's saying, but it was not necessarily complimentary.
No, I found it insulting, to be
Right,
honest with you, and, like, I could see him try if he's trying, but no,
right.
no,
But you're
everything
saying to
about
me in
that.
the middle of a newsroom.
Yeah,
You're
just
saying that to me in the middle of a newsroom. And so, and other people are like, "Oh, okay, well, that's just so and so." Or there was the time that I was on another young reporter, I was on an elevator, and a sheriff's deputy said something completely inappropriate to me.
Mhm.
Um, and I went back and I told my boss, and he was like, "Well, just try not to be in the elevator with him." Like, I was like, "You're not gonna pull me from the beat. You're not gonna like." And it was like, there was, I mean, because then I'm dealing with, okay, well, I can't, like, this person is a sheriff's deputy. Like, he has access to where I live,
Ay, ay,
to where
ay.
I work, what my car looks
Right.
like.
Jeez.
Like, this is, and so there's that where, again, as a public figure, yeah, you have to deal with some of that, but some of it is really quite scary
Yeah.
as you're trying to, like, oh, okay, this person could find out, and I could just be going around, and then again you get back into the
Then
stories
you'd
you
be on
report where you're
Dateline.
like, and right now
Not
I'm a story
reporting.
on Dateline. Right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Oh, man, yes. Oh, I would like, I seriously, I just would keep going, but I know we gotta wrap it up, but you have great stories, Michelle. It's always fun to just sit and talk, and, like, seriously, like,
Yeah,
I have so many more questions, but I also know, we
we'll
we
do a
gotta
part
wrap
two.
it up.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll have
yeah,
to do, yeah, let's, can we do it? Will you come on and do
yes,
this with me again? Okay, this has
yes.
been fun, and, I
Next
know
time on the
you.
Jennifer O'Brien show.
That's right, Michelle Wright tells all.
Right. Right.
Um, so for people that would like to find you, I know you, on top of doing what you do, you're on WSB, but tell people where they could also find you, or if they want to know more about what you got going on.
Yeah, so every morning, 95.5 WSB in Atlanta, or you can hit me up on Instagram. It's what's my name on Instagram? It's the
It's
right
the
stuff.
right
That's it.
stuff.
It's the
Yeah.
right stuff. Yeah, I was like, I know it's something that has to do with my name. Yeah, it's the right stuff on Instagram. Feel free to follow me there, or on Twitter. I am
Mhm.
Michelle Wright 6. So pretty easy stuff to
Okay.
remember.
Yeah, and then you also do speaking, public speaking as
I
well.
do. I
for
do. So
the
I will
yeah.
show up doing public speaking. I'm available if you would like to hire me for your event uh, to speak, or if looking to do traveling and travel blogging and eating
Oh,
and all of that
yes.
stuff. If
I
you want to have me
love
over and have me try any of your food or take me on a trip and let me tell you how great it is, I'm available for that as well.
I know, I love it when you leave the country because you always post great little shots, like, I get you take us
Yes.
with you, and it's
Yeah.
fun,
I
so
like to
I
bring people
love
with me.
that.
So yeah, my latest trip was in October to Turkey, and it was
Yes.
amazing. So you can catch some of that on my Instagram
Yeah.
because I posted some things up there. And again, if you haven't been to Turkey, Turkey is amazing. I would highly, highly recommend going to Turkey.
Oh, definitely. Okay, well, June Colson says, "Great interview,"
Oh,
and,
thank you,
yeah,
June.
thanks, June. This has been great, and then I'll just go if you're cool with it, I'll put the links to your Instagram and everything in the show notes, so if anybody
Yeah.
wants to, go check that out, they can, and, everybody, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next time. Thanks, Michelle.